Okay, so a very big welcome to everybody who's joined us, and welcome to this workshop, which is very much for beginners. And I'm going to be trying to act as MC while Steve and Mike in particular answer your questions. I'll try and keep track of everything. As I say, it's very informal session. It's something that Mike pioneered a lot starting last year. It was very popular. We really thought it was time to resurrect it again, and it's an alternative, more informal approach to the YouTube sessions that we run. Hopefully we'll be able to get this onto YouTube or selected highlights after the event. So if you ask a question, be prepared for it to end up on a YouTube. Okay, well, without more ado, I'm going to attempt to share my screen. And just as
looking.
You see my screen. So,
yep.
So on the show today, we've got me, John, G4ABQ. We've got Mike. I'm in Bedford in the UK. We've got Mike, and we've got Steve. It is very much for beginners. It's being recorded, but more than anything, we want to make it interactive and really try and pick up your comments via chat and live later on, I think. And we're aiming for about 1 hour. And at the end, the recording will be on the webinars page within the SDRplay website. So I'm going to now hand it over to initially Steve to just, while we wait for your questions to start to come in, to just talk through the very basics of getting up and running with SDRuno.
Yeah, again, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody, depending on where you are. I'm going to fire up SDRuno here as if I was doing it for the first time, because we still get a lot of people coming in that are just downloading Uno for the first time. They say it's difficult to use and so on and so forth. And I'm just going to try and show you how easy it is to get it up and running. So I see a question from Steve about using the new scheduler. I'm going to address that as I get into this. So bear with me, and I'm going to try and share my screen, and remember to share sound as well, and we'll get SDR. Oh, before I do that, let me show you. I'm using a RSPDX today, and I will be using it with my famous blue wire antenna, at least initially, and just to prove that you don't need anything fancy from an antenna standpoint. Now, on this thing, I've got a SMA to SO239 adapter, which fits a banana plug perfectly, which is connected to a length of blue wire, okay? So nothing fancy going on here whatsoever. And now I'm going to try and share my screen. And, hopefully we will see SDRuno. Now this is just as it would look when you started up for the first time. And in fact, what I did was I did a complete reset. You'll see it's preset to 3.5 megahertz. So if you have a device like an RSPDX or an RSP Duo, in the main window you see here in the upper left, this is where you will select the input in use. I'm using antenna A, so antenna A is selected. What we'll want to do, at least initially, we start with the gain all the way to the top, and we will only reduce that if we get an overload indication here. This is also where you will set the sample rate, which determines how much of the spectrum you see in the main window. Whether or not we go more into that or not, I don't know. But the main thing here is we just hit play. And once I hit play, almost immediately, I'm going to mute the sound. You see a bunch of hash and noise and everything else. So that alone tells me that the RSP hardware is working. It's picking up signals, in this case noise, and passing those signals into the software, which is then decoding it. Now, if we want to see some actual working signals, then the way I recommend tuning it initially is we go to the RX control panel. This is this area in the upper middle. And its functioning life is supposed to look like the front of your rig, okay? And so you see the frequency there, you see various modes, AM, synchronous AM, FM, CW, double sideband, lower sideband, upper sideband, and so on. We've got some various sub-mode settings here. We've got your VFO and VFO A and B, a mute function, squelch function, volume. So this should all be standard stuff to you. And this is the audio AGC. Again, that should be familiar. And some noise reduction and noise blanking options here, as well as some notch filters, which is beyond the scope of today's. But if we click on the band button to the right, underneath the meter, we get a choice of ham lower, ham upper, and I'm just going to hit broadcast. Remember, I'm just trying to prove that this thing's working for a first-time user. So having hit broadcast, I'll hit medium wave, which is the same thing as AM for American users. And you see here we have signals, and by clicking on that button, it's automatically selected the normal AM broadcast band. You can see various signals here. I'm going to click on 1080, which is a local strong broadcast station
as well.
Yes, and our building, did you see they're actually changing? I told you they changed all that landscape out finally.
Having clicked on a station, I'm going to click on a different station.
They're coming up.
If we want to think,
Steve, just lower the volume of Uno.
Lower?
Yeah, about halfway.
Okay, well, I muted it anyway. So the point being, you can click on signals as you see them. And what I wanted to illustrate was once you get there, if you're not exactly on 1080, you can either move across one of the digits in the frequency display here, and I can put it on the 9 and then hit the mouse wheel, and I can get to 1080 exactly. I can use the up and down arrow keys to do fine tuning, any number of ways of doing it. So at this point, we know that our RSP is working, okay? So we can do the same thing. Now, I've only got that blue wire antenna. So if I go to try and look at HF, for example, I'm probably not going to have much success. If I look at 40 meters, mainly getting hash and QRM from inside the house, as you might expect on the blue wire. But I also have a magnetic loop antenna hooked up outside. So I'm going to put that onto antenna B. And we'll have a look and see if we get any signals coming out of that. So, okay, that's hooked up now. This is actually the MFJ receive only loop on antenna B. Well, it's stunningly quiet, isn't it? Just a little bit going on down the lower end.
20 should be active.
So 20 will probably be, you're right, 20 will probably be more active at this time of day. So we should see something going on here. Not a lot going on there either, Mike. Lots of digital stuff going on. But the point I wanted to make about using the buttons, and I do this intentionally because Mike uses Uno totally different than I do, for example. I like to click on the buttons because, for example, when I clicked on 20 meters, it has framed the band for me all the way from 14 to 14.3 megahertz. It has changed the mode to upper sideband, as you see at the top here, and it's selected probably a suitable filter of 1800 hertz, and it's given me a step size of 500 hertz. It's done all that for me. I don't have to do it manually. So now if I go back to 40 meters real quick, you'll see it's changed it to lower sideband for me. So I don't have to worry about it. If I turn that off, and if instead of being on 40 meters, if I put directly a 20 meter frequency in, let's say 14.2. I forgot to put the megahertz in. Excuse me, let me try that again. 14.2 M. Okay, now I'm at 14.2 megahertz. I have a somewhat indeterminate spectrum window I'm looking at. I'm on LSB, whereas I should be on USB. So I have to make a lot of manual adjustments, whereas if I just clicked on the 40 button, it would have taken care of everything for me. The size would have been correct and so on and so forth. So that is a good way to get started. Now, there is lots of capability in Uno, and it's not surprising, therefore, that people find it difficult to get their arms around everything right away. So for that reason, I recommend you hit one button or more at a time. In fact, let's go to the FM broadcast band. So if I left click on the frequency up here in RX control, I can put in a frequency. I'll put 102.1 or something like that. 2.1 M for megahertz. And now here you see an FM station. Notice I have an overload warning here in the main window, and that is a signal to me to turn down the RF gain until that warning goes away. And I'm on the FM broadcast band, so the mode would be FM, stereo wide FM, and a bandwidth of 192 kilohertz. And I don't know why I'm not hearing anything. Oh, there we go. Can you hear that okay?
Yeah.
So I'm going to beat that again. And so that's basically how you tune around. There are several ways of doing it. What I recommend you do as you become familiar with Uno for the first time is go to the options menu. And if you go down here, when you installed Uno, you've got the user manual. So if you click on that, it's going to open it up in your browser, and you can see descriptions of what all the buttons do. I encourage you to experiment with buttons one at a time. However, if you get into a mode where you feel like you're totally confused and nothing works, here's an option up here, reset to default settings. And what that will do is that will clear everything out, and we'll be back where we started off in the beginning, like at 3.5 megahertz. So don't be afraid to experiment with it. Auto layouts, I pick default. What you see on the screen when you open it up for the first time depends very much on your screen resolution. In my case, I get the main window, which you would always want to have. I get the RX control window, which are your basic receiver controls. I get the main spectrum window down here in the lower right, and then the auxiliary spectrum window in the upper right. Now, the auxiliary spectrum is just showing me, you see this area here, this darker area around the center frequency. It's showing me a magnified view of that at the top. So that's basically it. So you will see things right away. Now, somebody mentioned the other day it was hard to use the memory panel. Well, by default, since I've only got one virtual receiver going, the memory control button here is checked. So if I'm on a frequency and I like it, all I have to do is go over to this memory panel, which is open. And if it wasn't open, let's say it wasn't open, if I click on the memory panel button up there, it will open it up. If I now click on store, I've got my first saved frequency in the memory panel. So I'm not sure why people say it's hard to store a frequency. Now, having done this, this will be my first memory bank. I'd probably right click over here and do save bank as, and it will prompt me to give it a name, and it asks me where I want to put it. I wouldn't normally put it where it says community plugins, but for demo purposes, I'll call it test bank and save it. And now I've got a memory bank called test bank and a frequency store. So it's pretty straightforward. We had a question about doing a live recording. What used to be called the recording panel is now called the scheduler. So if I click on that, the scheduler panel will open. And if I just want to record what's going on, and this will be a full spectrum recording, okay? The scheduler, like the old recorder, records the IQ data stream. So it'll record everything you see in the main spectrum window there. So I should be able to click on the record button, and you'll see it says recording. It shows the size of the recording, and it will just continue recording for as long as we let it run. If I've finished my recording, I can click on stop. And if I want to play it back, I will probably be, we'll see if it finds it. It'll probably want to, I'm sorry, what I need to do is go up here to option, select input, WAV file, which is what I've recorded. And I'm not sure where I kept it. I guess it was right here, SDRuno. Open that file up. There it is. And now it's playing back that recording.
Steve, can I just jump in? Just because
yeah.
There was a question from 3V8SS Ash, who has got an RSB duo coming quite soon, and his main focus is medium wave and low band DXing, and he's asking, could you record a full day of medium wave, you know, and display the whole waterfall, you know,
okay,
afterwards? Is there a practical limit at all, or?
Yes, there is, which I don't know off the top of my head, but the things that affect the size of the file you record and you know, I'll bring the scheduler back up. You'll see if I want to add an event, I get to specify start and end times and so on. Normally, if people are doing like medium wave DXing and stuff, they'd rather just record a few minutes around the top of the hour. But things that affect the size of the recording will be the width. Let me get out of the WAV file and go back to some live stuff. Select input RSB. Okay, so now we're back to our recording. So the width that you see in the window there, the wider that is, and in this case, we're only looking at what about, well, the span is 2 megahertz. So
I guess for medium wave, it's even less, isn't it? You know.
Well, medium wave would be even less, but you would want to make it less. So if let's go back to medium wave then, and broadcast medium wave. So now we're looking at 1250 kilohertz span. Okay. I'm hideously overloaded, as you can see here, so I'll crank the gain down a little bit. It looks a bit cleaner. If you didn't want to look at the entire spectrum, let me clear the medium wave pre-select. I could decimate that down by, you know, any number I like. So now I'm only looking at a span of 250 kilohertz. So the width of the spectrum you're recording will directly affect the recording size. So the two things are recording, the width of the spectrum, the time of the recording. And to get you a definitive answer, I'd like to refer you to an app note on the subject, which I think we did round about when 1.3 came out, John, where I talked about recording and AGC functions. And within that app note, and maybe John can try and find it on the website while we're doing it, it's in our video catalog, and perhaps I should show that while we're talking about it. I don't know if it'll let me change.
And what Steve means by size is not the actual recording length, it's the file size of the recording being stored on your hard drive.
Correct. Yeah, it's it's a function of time, how long you're recording, the visible spectrum that you have here, which affects the recording width. I'm going to stop sharing this.
Was that a document, Steve, or
I don't remember, John.
Okay.
I know there was a video, and what I don't know is, here we go. So let me go to Tech Help on our main page here. Let's see if we can find it. And let's go to the Applications and Support Catalog. This will be a good test of whether or not this works. And let's put in something like recording and see if anything pops up. Let's search. Okay. Using the SDRuno record function. It looks like it's only a video. So let me hit that and see if this is the one I was thinking of. I think it is. Yeah.
Hello, this is Steve at SDRplay.
Listen to that.
In today's video.
Somewhere.
And as you can see, the file size I ended up with was 2.15.
Okay, so this is an example. If you, I'm hoping you can see this. If you go and search our catalog for AV019, it is just a video, John. You can also search our YouTube channel and find it. But you see here is for 60 seconds of recording with a final sample rate as shown in the main window of 385 kilohertz. I got 92 megabytes. So 2 megahertz, the file size had gone up to 480 megs. With the full 10 megahertz of bandwidth, which obviously doesn't apply to this medium wave example, your file would be 2 gig. So here's the calculator, okay? Your file size is going to be the time in seconds times the final, excuse me, times the final sample rate times 4, okay? So if you want to guesstimate and you can figure out what, if you wanted to record 24 hours, I don't know what that equates to in seconds, it's going to be quite a big file. Now the recordings will be, I believe they're chopped up automatically into chunks 4 gigabytes in size. Is that correct, Mike? I forget the exact number.
Yeah, the maximum, let me check real quick.
I think I think it chops it up into 4 gigabit sections, but when you play it back, it kind of joins.
Yeah, it will seamlessly, it will tie everything back together. It will play back seamlessly. But let me just see what the.
Thank you for the question, because what unfortunately while I'm doing this, I can't see the chat window anymore. You highlighted something I wanted to point out, was that if you go to the SDRplay website, and here's the home page. If you just want to get software and stuff, there's a software button here. If you go to the help, which is where I went to, or you can go to the YouTube channel. There are a ton of videos that we have done. Mike has been especially prolific. He's got his own channel with the videos, but I've done a bunch of videos. Andy's done some. Even John's done some when we've managed to nail him down to the office. So we got a bunch of videos there. But if you go into the help center, what we tried to do was we tried to cross-reference the various questions that people ask through our ticket system into needing help. So you can kind of start up here, tell us what kind of RSP you have, what operating system you have, and which software you're using. And then we've got often asked questions. We've got hardware, software, pan adapter questions, and you can dig on down to find answers to most of your questions. Let's say software, for example. Here's various different things here. Let's say API service issues. What I'm trying to illustrate is, as you work down, we try and show particularly relevant documents or videos. But if you get to the point where you still haven't got anything, there's a raise ticket button at the bottom. So if you click on that, you'll go into our ticket system, and your request will be noted by all of us. All of us have access to the ticket system, and we will do our best to get you up and running. So that's a very powerful resource that is available to you. As you probably saw earlier, I went straight into the video catalog, which you can also get to from the help menu up the top here, documentation and videos. So between those and then eventually the help system, you should have information for just about everything you need. I'm trying to figure out how I get the chat window. Are there any other questions at this point, John?
Well, yes. I wanted to give Mike a go in a minute, but maybe you could just touch on a question from Zero to Hero, who says, could you please explain in simple terms the difference between zero IF and low IF and when to use each one?
Well, in simple terms, you should do what I do, and that is to, I'm going to stop sharing here and get back to SDRuno. Oh, here's the chat. I wonder if I could break the chat out separately. It was hiding behind all the time. Okay, let me go back to SDRuno and okay, so let me close the scheduler down. Once you use the band select buttons, you lose any. It takes the low IF, zero IF thing out of the equation. It picks what's best for you. And normally for any of the HF bands, you'll find that you end up in low IF mode. Look in the main panel in the upper left. I don't know if you can see my mouse movements or not.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so it will normally pick low IF. If you go to, let's see what happens if we go to ham upper and go to, say, the 2 meter band. It's still gone to, it's gone to zero IF now because it wants a wider bandwidth, and it's gone to 5 megahertz IF bandwidth. But if we turn off the band select buttons, we now get full control over sample rate and decimation, okay? And in zero IF mode, that allows us to go all the way up to 10 megahertz of sample rate, which is the maximum that the RSP hardware is capable of.
It's really visibility, I guess, in simple terms. That's the amount.
Yeah, it's the spectrum. Now that's zero IF. Now zero IF is a bit like saying direct conversion, right? It's not, but it's similar. You said simple terms, right? So zero IF means that there is no IF mixing stage involved. If we go to the IF mode button here and select low IF, what you'll find is when you do that, you've automatically, your sample rate has decreased to 2 megahertz, and that opens up decimation, which allows you to go even less. So what I would say is, in general use, use low IF. And if you're on HF or you only need a small part of the band, use decimation to make the visible width. So decimation of 16, I've now gone down to 125 kilohertz on the main spectrum window. And you'll see at the top here, my final sample rate is 125, also shown up here with an IF bandwidth of 0.2. SDRuno will intelligently pick the correct IF bandwidth for you, okay? In general, you'll have less load on your system with the narrower the bandwidth you look at, and you'll see more granularity. If you want more than 2 megahertz of visible bandwidth, then and only then I would suggest you go to 0 IF. And that starts at 2, but takes you all the way up to 10. So for 0 IF, I would recommend that only if you need more than 2 megahertz of sample rate. And you can make technical cases for exceptions to that, but you said in simple terms. So what I would say is, if you want to see more than 2 megahertz of bandwidth down here in the main spectrum window, go to 0 IF. At all other times, use low IF. You also won't get any problem with the so-called zero spikes that show up in the waveform, which actually we took out. Again, we're going beyond the beginner level here. We're going into settings, but we have an auto LO offset function, which is checked by default, which sets the local oscillator 11 kilohertz by default offset from the tuned frequency to avoid that 0 IF spike.
As you say, Steve, I think that is getting into some of the more advanced stuff. So maybe this would be a good point to hand over to Mike. I don't know if you want to pick up on some of the...
Oh, can I just mention one thing before I go?
Yeah.
Since we're talking to beginners, and I saw a post on Facebook just yesterday. A guy posted a picture and said, every time I start SDRuno, I see this. Now, what it done was, he'd taken his camera on his phone or whatever and pointed at the screen, taking a picture. And there was a big error dialog box, and you couldn't see a thing. It was all white. Now, Windows forever has had a function for capturing the screen. It's varies slightly from one Windows version to the next. But if you don't want to figure that one out, you should be able to go, where is it gone now?
Main SP is the screenshot function.
You should be seeing main now, right?
Yeah, if you go into this, if you want Uno to take a screenshot, it would be in the main SP next to power and SNR measurements.
Okay.
Right on the top title bar, go to the main SP.
Yeah, I'm there.
No, you're in the main. Go down and then to the right.
SP1.
Oh, there it is. I'm sorry. I was going to sleep. Yeah, in the main window. If I want to take a screenshot, I just hit that button. You can tell it where you want it to save the image, give it a name, do save, and then if you're looking for support, you can send that screenshot. I'm sorry, I was looking under the settings menu for some reason. Brain fart. So that function is built in there. I think I already mentioned things that might help you as a beginner. Reset to default if you screw everything up. Auto layouts will make a nice picture on the screen, and the user manual. Okay, so between the user manual and the help available on our website, almost every question that crops up in the groups can be answered in one of those manners. So with that, I am going to stop sharing, and I'm going to turn it over to Mike. And go ahead, Mike.
Oh, is anybody, John, any questions?
Yeah,
is there anything that wasn't answered?
There was one about, can we explain VFO-QM?
Well, the VFO isn't that that would be the software oscillator. Or in the LO is the hardware oscillator.
Yeah.
What's the
QM? Simon
possibly QRM? If he's referring to QRM, it would be noise. Steve was referring to noise or hash.
Okay. No, maybe we could ask Simon.
One person is, how do you use the new scheduler to record live, not scheduled? Let me just share my screen.
I already showed that. I already showed
on live.
That.
Okay.
I did that.
Let me just see why I can't select my screen. Just in case.
Frank at KB4T said, are there step-by-step startup instructions for SDRuno? And the answer to that is yes, there are. It's again, go to our website, and when it says new to SDRuno, the start here flow will walk you through it.
There's also a section in the manual that I specifically put in. If we go, can everybody see my screen okay?
Yeah, it's good.
And can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
looks good. Looks a lot like
if you
mine.
go to the
Got a
user
little
manual,
data on your memory.
and you go down to the bottom, it should be quick start guide. And this is a quick how-to. Even if you're brand new to SDRuno or SDRs, but you're familiar with tuning a traditional radio with a regular dial, you can just follow this quick start guide, which is basically what Steve showed, where you would use the medium wave broadcast band or the FM broadcast band as your hello world to SDRs. This way you can become familiar with the controls. After you see that everything is functioning and working, then you can go on to the further steps throughout the manual. And there's, it was a dual question. They're asking for additional resources. There's tons of resources. There's numerous independent SDRplay groups. There's Groups.io, which is an independently run group. The Facebook group for SDRplay, the SDRuno group for SDRplay. There's 2 YouTube channels that are official from SDRplay, the SDRplay YouTube channel, and then I have one, SDRplay Ham Guides. There's John makes blog posts with information. I post videos and PDF documentation. Just a basic Google search of SDRplay should show
In fact, there's
tons of information. It's like almost information overload.
Yeah, actually, Mike, a lot of the links you just mentioned, if you, from the very home page, if you click on miscellaneous, which is the big bar at the bottom, I don't know if you go to the home page, you then get under there a whole bunch of secondary, very useful resources, including one called community.
Let me go, it's under Miss?
Yeah.
Just scroll down a bit, it's below that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you actually go
Scroll down on that home page as well.
and click on
There you go.
Missed.
See the SDR mix, but you were there. There you go.
That's it. And
That's
then
up there.
you see community links has all those links and more than mentioned by Mike just now. So and those are all clickable links, so you go straight to the various forums and Facebook groups.
Let me just see, is anybody, let me just ask this, and if you have your mic, interrupt. I don't know if, John, if you have the people unmuted. Does anybody have anybody here that's particularly brand new to SDRuno? Or possibly this new release of SDRuno?
Feel free to unmute your microphone and
it could be any question. If I can't answer it, or John can't answer it, or Steve can, we will get you the answer. So if you guys do have questions, take advantage of this webinar. And there's really no silly question. It could be as simple as, you know, feel free to ask anything you like in regards to SDRplay or SDRuno.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you fine. Let me just see who I'm talking to.
At first, excuse me my English. I'm from Slovakia.
Oh, no worries.
This is a very good webinar because I'm deciding what to buy. I have now RTL SDR, everybody knows, but now I'm thinking to buy RSP 1A, I think. It is.
What do you like listening to with the dongle? I know because the dongle goes from 27 megahertz to 1.9 gigs.
Yes, my answer is I don't know what to listen because I'm absolute newbie. I just want to place my antenna to my window, and maybe I was looking a lot of videos to track NOAA satellites or something, CB band, but I'm just learning.
Well, there's a lot more. There's a ton of stuff you can listen to with the RSP because it goes from 1 kilohertz to 2 gigahertz, and everything in between. So anywhere, if you're into decoding the satellites, NOAA is no problem at all. CB, you know, 20, I think that's 27 megahertz, and for us, and it might be 26 or 29 for you, which is no issues whatsoever. I mean, it's really, it's a world of information out there when it comes to radio and decoding.
Maybe one question, as I know these have, I don't know 12 or 14 bits DAC.
14.
14. RTL
Yep.
have 8 bits DAC. How big is the difference between these two DACs?
Between 8, well, if it's an 8-bit and 14-bit.
Yes.
So it's 6 bits, 6-bit difference.
Yes. I don't know.
Oh, we mean from signal and noise, or
signal
I
noise?
can give you. I can give you the spec sheet. Just bear with me. Let me pull this up.
Yeah,
and if you type in RSP1A and you go straight to SDRplay's website, you'll see the specs, and it has a detailed technical information. And if you go here, all of the noise figures and everything, the measurements, because there's just so many, I can't quote them off the top of my head, but all of your sensitivity measurements are right here.
Oh, thank you. I will check it.
Let me put this in chat, and then you can grab it directly from there and then bookmark it.
Okay, thank you so much. And
yeah, no problem.
The last question, I don't know this software. I seen it only on YouTube videos. I'm using just now SDR Sharp. But is there any option to configure own, how to say it, keyboard shortcuts?
Oh, what type of shortcuts?
Keyboard shortcuts.
Sure, you have a ton of shortcuts that you can use. If you go right into the user manual and you hit Control F and then you type keyboard, it should give you the option on page 47 for all of the keyboard shortcuts.
Perfect.
So if you'd like, let me also link you to the manual. I'll give you the direct link to the manual online, SDRuno manual, and I'll pop this in chat for you. And I believe it was page 47.
Yes.
You remember the page numbers, huh?
Yeah, well, I put a lot into the manual. So there's the manual also. If you do decide to get the RSP1A, which I hope you do, feel free to
I will do it next week.
Yeah, feel free to reach out to me. I personally put out a bunch of banks, SDRuno banks. I don't know if you can see my screen here, but you said you wanted to decode NOAA satellites. So I have the satellites here already. You can use these pre-populated banks that I've already created to get you started in exploring, the spectrum and seeing what you want to listen to. So there's tons. I think there's 21 banks. There's easily over 5,000 frequencies if you combined everything, and I update it. So this is all free. Yeah, if you do a Google search, just type in SDRplay ham guides, like ham radio, and guides like a guidebook, and you'll see a ton of videos there and documentation. And like I said, if you have any issues or questions, feel free to reach out to me personally, and I'll help you the best that I can.
Okay, thank you so much, Mike. Now I give place for another questions. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Hey, Mike, we got a question from Frank, KB4T, picking up individual 120 hertz spikes caused by power line interference. Now, the RSPs do not tune below 1 kilohertz, so I don't know if you're trying to get down that low, in which case you won't have success, or whether you're looking for harmonics of those which do appear within the range. Yeah,
you would see the harmonics.
Yeah, the harmonics you can see once you get above 1 kilohertz, but if you're looking for 120 hertz, you're not going to get very far.
No, let's just see if it's going to show the. Yeah, I'm in Florida, and I'm dealing with power line noise right now as it is, and you can see the spike here. This is all overhead power line noise. So this is common mode noise that's coming in from the power lines, and I'm still waiting for Florida Power and Lighting to resolve this. But the horizontal lines that you see here affects me all the way up to about 15 megahertz. But you can use, if you're getting noise, you can use the wideband noise blanker built into SDRuno, and you should be able to null out a lot of those spikes.
Mike, I think Frank wants to actually see it. He said he's a power line interference investigator for a large electric utility in Florida, which has got to be FP&O.
Really? Okay, fix
so maybe he can straighten you out.
He could be more helpful than you.
Yeah. Do you see this here, Frank?
If Frank's not there at the moment, if he's gone away,
maybe Frank could speak. Can we
yeah. If he's there.
Frank, do you want to unmute and just have a little bit more background to this, Frank? If you would like to.
Anyway, while we're waiting for Frank, here's another one for Mike. F5UJA says he can't run any of Ian's plugins for decoding digital modes, CW, SSPB, Navtex, and so on. All of them return an error upon plugin loading, DLL not recognized. I'm wondering if they're being used, the correct versions are being used, and if they've been...
Whose plugins, Jan's? I'm sorry, whose plugins?
It said Ian's.
Ian.
Frank, it says you're unmuted because I have the ability to mute you. So I'm not sure why we're not hearing you. You're saying that you think...
Oh, he says Jan's. He's just came back and said Jan's.
Okay.
So Frank says unmute not working. I don't know. You should be there now, Frank.
It says you're unmuted because I've got the ability to mute you. Hello?
Okay, I can hear you.
All right, how about this? Does this work?
Yep, that's
perfect.
Good.
I had to fidget with the Zoom settings to get it to work properly. And first of all, Mike, I'm sorry if you're not getting good service from FPL. I am the lead interference investigator for the northern half of the state. You must be in the southern half.
I'm in the southern. I deal with Orlando.
Okay. Oh, good. Well, Orlando is an excellent investigator, and I'm sure that he will do everything possible to help your problem. Here's what I was trying to convey.
Okay.
I own both an RSP1 and an RSP2, and in both I find that when I use any of the software products that will allow them to function, we listen typically in the VHF spectrum. We listen in AM mode, which allows us to see and hear power line interference spikes most effectively. And unfortunately, the spectral display of any of the software defined radios that I've tried will not display the individual spikes that appear on some band scopes that we use.
Have you tried adjusting the average?
Well, it's been a while since I last played with it because I did try a lot of different things and none of them would work. But I was curious if there's something in the software itself, the SDRuno, that are specifically when switched on or is built in and is left on by default, minimizes or eliminates that kind of display on the spectral scope.
You know what I'm thinking you might be seeing here is the parameter you want to adjust is RBW for resolution bandwidth. I just happen to have my my Uno running at about 145 megahertz right now, and my resolution bandwidth is 244.14 hertz, which means it's gonna, you know, your individual spike is going to be lost in a much wider bin that's 200 hertz wide.
Yeah, so, I run an RBW about 30. I run it at 32. It's just where I can capture the most detail from the signals. But I also use a different averaging just in case if it's too quick.
But I think that's what you need to see those spikes. I think that's what you need to adjust.
That is an excellent suggestion. Which of the various panels contains the Rpw adjustment?
Aux SP and main SP. Let me, I'll show you. Let me share my screen.
And I'm curious, Mike, are you able to see individual power line spikes on your version of SDRuno?
I bet he has.
I have complete. I'm wiped out. I'm sure. I can't answer that because I haven't noticed it. But the power line noise that I have is so severe. It wipes me out up to about 15 megahertz.
I understand. So can you see them if you tune at 15 megahertz? To give you an idea, the kind of display that I'm searching for, if you look at my QRZ page, I have a picture of an ICOM 756 Pro 3 band scope tuned to about 10 megahertz that shows what power line interference looks like on that particular type of receiver. In succeeding generations of ICOM receivers, they modified the way the algorithm that displays the band scope to eliminate the ability to display the individual 120 hertz spikes. So if you look at my QRZ page and look at that picture, that is what I'm searching for.
Okay, do me a favor in chat.
Kind of display.
In chat, put your call sign. Is your email address good on QRZ?
Absolutely. Kilo Bravo 4 Tango, KB4T is my call sign.
Okay, I'll take a look after this webinar, and later on this afternoon, I will respond back to you with an appropriate answer.
That'd
and
be
hopefully
great.
I'll be able to match up SDRuno's display to what you're referring to. I'm 99% sure I can.
I actually spoke to somebody years ago about it, but unfortunately very little happened. But that, I think if you were able to duplicate that capability with the SDRplay equipment and software, you would be opening up an entirely new market for professional use of these devices.
Have you tried the spectrum analyzer software?
I'm sorry,
Frank, have you tried the spectrum analyzer software that's available on
I
our
wasn't
website?
aware that it existed.
Again, you see that link I've posted to miscellaneous? If you go to that, there's a link called Spectrum Analyzer. You click on that and it'll take you to the software, the documentation, and also links to video demos of it. It's actually been authored by an independent guy in Australia called Steve Andrew, and it basically stitches together 2 megahertz slots and allows you to scan over, any range from 1 kilohertz up to 2 gigahertz and give a kind of spectrum display.
I'll have to look at that. When I was unsuccessful some years ago, I set the 2 RSPs that I have aside, and I haven't really looked at them until I received an email from one of the groups I belong to that mentioned this particular program today, and that has gotten me thinking about it again.
Okay,
interesting. Good.
So meanwhile, Mike, do you want to, do you know which plugins we're talking about here?
I believe Jan, but if he says that they're not running, what I would do is I can check them because they're not part of the community installer. So I'll download them, I'll check them. If they're running on my end, I can let you know. Let me just see who asked that question so I can get back to them. And then if it's not, if there is an issue, you're gonna have to reach out to Jan, the developer.
I must admit, I haven't tried them lately. I have used them in the past, and I don't remember having any issues. I think the key thing is to make sure they're installed in the correct.
They would go in the communities folder, which is your, which usually is in your documents folder.
Okay.
I just want to see who, John, if you can you find that who asked that, just where I can get back to them? Maybe there's a call sign with their Zoom name.
Yeah, it's F5UJA, it says, which is a strange call sign.
F5UJA.
And
okay, I have that noted.
We can. Do you want to unmute them, John? They're still here. I don't have a name.
Yeah. F5UJA. Do you want to speak up? Just unmute yourself, and we can find out a bit more.
This chat message says yes, they are installed in the correct folder. Do you have them installed on your system at the moment, John?
No, I don't. I'm very conscious of the time here, and that a lot of people haven't had a chance to ask any questions. So I was going to kind of, well,
I think I might have them installed on a different computer. So John, if you don't mind, I'm going to run away from my computer and run into another room and see if maybe I have them set up on there and just try them out real quick while you and Mike continue here.
Okay. Maybe Mike, we should address the question that's come in from Mario.
Okay.
He says, I'm not new. I did the update of SDRuno and then the plugins did not work as they should.
which plugins are not working.
Maybe Mario, could you unmute and tell us a little bit more about what's been going on, and we'll try and sort of give some guidance here.
Yes, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Welcome.
Perfectly. Well, I have the alias 1A since 2 months, but before I played around with dongles and other kind of things. And I was very well surprised that SDRuno had such a lot of plugins. And then I start using them in the version before the 1.4.1, and they work. Like the black. Can you remove that screen? That one, yes. The Black Hat worked, the DEP worked, and also the Cloud Maker, etc. And then I updated, and they work so now and then. So it was very annoying because I tried to get things solved with the Black Hat system. So I have asked in Twitter about this. And then I figured out that I updated just just install it over the older version. I'm also an IT guy, so I decided today to remove all the software from SDRuno and reinstalled only the new version, and now it works. But I was wondering if others also have this problem, or is there something with the installing of it that it does not remove all the old things, because that can also be...
No, off the top of my head, the only thing I could think of is if the community plugins that are written by the community are not in the community folder, but were in the SDRplay plugins folder, that could cause a corruption, or possibly, I'm not saying that this is what it was, it could have been during the upgrade, maybe the SDRuno INI file became corrupt, and you, instead of uninstalling, just a simple reset might have fixed it. So it could have been two different things.
I did a reset also in the menu.
You did? Okay.
Yes.
And it didn't work.
It didn't work. And that's why I decided this morning to reinstall everything to see if it still works. And now it works. So it can be also my system, but if others also have this problem, then it could be a good way of working.
I haven't had any reports since, you know, what I'm not following on Twitter, but in the Facebook groups and within our ticket system, nothing has come in as of yet in regards to previous versions of SDRuno's plugins merging over to the latest version of SDRuno 1.4.1, and those plugins after installation not working. I haven't gotten anything personally. I can check with my colleagues, and then if there is something, of course we'll address it, but I haven't had anything come up.
I haven't seen anything either, and I do have my, my community plugins are not in the standard place. And I think I addressed that in one of the videos. I have a separate SDRplay directory within documents, and then I break it down into memory banks and
exactly. There are indeed two locations, and I was very keen to place them in the proper location. And in the formal version it worked, and after the update it did not work anymore.
Well, what I suggest you do is take the name of one particular plugin and do a search, and make sure you don't have it installed in two different locations at the same time. I think that might cause a problem.
Well, I removed everything, so it's now everything is okay now, so it works. So I was only wondering if there are more people with have this problem, and if not, it can be also my system.
I mean, I've installed numerous copies of SDRuno, and I never uninstalled the previous one first, and I've not had any issues. I think when you talk about plugins, that's kind of a specific case, but again, since the plugins have come in, the only time I've seen issues is if people try and put community plugins in the SDR folder, which is, they should not do that, or if they have community plugins installed in 2 separate locations.
Okay.
So if you had them installed in location A, and then you ran the installer again for a new version of Uno, and this time you let it install in the default location, or you specified location B, which was different than your location A, then I could see you might have problems.
Okay, thanks. Okay, Johan has a question.
It's always safe if you just let it use its default locations and then switch it later, maybe.
Okay. We're getting close to the hour, so I just wanted to bring in Johan or comment on his question. This is Johan Lehman, who asks, with the new ADSB plugin, can it pass data tracking site to link ADSB data with ATC data? So essentially it can, but it would require someone to write an additional plugin to make that seamless. And in fact, we have got 1 or 2 people looking at taking our new plugin, which and working on interfaces to do that kind of thing. So I'm quite confident over time that there will be additional plugins to really make full use of the RSPDuo, which can simultaneously be tracking ADSB data and tuning around within the VHF 118 to 136 megahertz ATC AM bands. So that's very exciting, and I think there are other plane spotting utilities and interfaces that potentially will come along, and we're kind of encouraging third-party developers to look at that. So I hope that answers the question. If not, just unmute and let us know. And anyone else who may have a question, I think there's a few more appeared. Yeah, sorry, F5UJA. It's
I'm just writing a response in chat there. I don't have it set up on my machine. I was trying to explain that I have used those plugins before and they work just fine. I have not used them with the latest version, and part of the reason for that is I periodically just wipe everything clean so that I'm sort of current with what's going on. I've got lots of different versions and so on. So I think what I'm going to do is I'll download them again and try and see if there's any issues, and perhaps if something comes up, John, you can add it to a blog post or something. Sure.
The plugins, there was a question, where does he find Jan's plugins? The quickest way is just go into Google, type Jan space SDRuno space plugins, and it will go directly to his GitHub. I don't know his GitHub URL off the top of my head, but that's exactly how I do it, and it brings me right there.
And again, there's a link from our plugins page, which you can get to from that miscellaneous page, or just Google SDRplay plugins. Our plugins page, if you scroll on down, it's quite a long page, but there's the link to Jan's GitHub there.
Yeah, and again, I'd like to emphasize using our website to look for answers to your questions. And don't forget the user manual. It's right there under the options button in SDRuno.
Does I guess, John, before we end out, does anybody have any questions? It's like I said, there's no stupid questions. I'll be more than happy to spend a couple extra minutes with you now to help you. So this way, when we leave, I feel more comfortable knowing that I was able to help you. So please feel free to ask those questions. Take advantage of this opportunity while you have 3 people from SDRplay that will gladly help you.
Michael's just come in with one saying, do you recommend some clip-on toroid or USB or antenna cables?
Sure, if you're getting common mode noise, absolutely. The mix is important. If the person gives me a call sign in chat, I can give them a chart. I can look them up on QRZ or an email address, and I can send them a chart which shows the different combinations of the ferrite mixes to what it will suppress as far as noise and in what frequency ranges. But do I recommend it? Yes. It's a band-aid to a problem. You want to try to locate the noise and relieve the source of noise versus putting a band-aid on it, which is what clip-on ferrites do. But sometimes you can't find the noise, and ferrites is the only way to go.
Sacrilege. I don't have any ferrites on my USB.
Yeah, I have OCD. I have ferrites all throughout the house, and just for preventative measures.
Well, I think it's kind of like an old wives' tale. It's like if any noise you pick up and see in SDRuno, 99% of that's going to come in through the antenna port. And don't think you're going to get rid of some QRM that you're picking up by putting ferrite cores on a USB cable. Now, if you do have a noisy PC, then yeah, maybe some noise is coming through the USB cable, but that is the exception rather than the rule. And I think you'd do better, as you said in the question, to put that ferrite core around the coax feed line coming into the antenna. But I think too many people, they rush off and they get USB cables with ferrite cores on, expecting it's going to solve all their problems, and it doesn't.
It's certainly...
Like Mike said,
two questions came in that I just want to answer before we go. Any plans of having more platform-independent versions of the software? 2.0 is going to be cross-platform, Linux and Mac. Other software, I don't know if other developers are going to, I know that there's SDR++, which is now Linux and Mac, which is compatible with the RSPs. And then when we go cross-platform, that will be a version 2.0, and SDRuno will be x86, Windows, and Linux. x86 meaning, Windows, PC, and Windows, Mac, and Linux.
And I would like to mention, when I did the demo earlier, you were actually seeing Uno running in a virtual machine on Mac. 2012.
And there was one last question. What would be better, a 500 kilohertz low pass filter or use a software notch filter to kill loud medium wave signals? You can try the software notch filter. It's not a software notch filter, it's a hardware medium wave notch filter. You can try that. If the notch filter built into the device is not suppressing it enough, then yes, you can add an additional filter or use a pre-selector.
And what Mike, all Mike's talking about there is using the MW FM button in the Uno main panel that engages that hardware filter on the input.
Well, let me see if I could show it real quick. If you guys can see the screen here.
Right there, you got it on there.
Yeah, this is on, and then what I can do is usually I can get a little bit of, I'll do it really quick, hopefully it shows up. Just bear with me. All right, that's 116. So if I enable it, I'm getting intermod here from FM broadcast. Once I enable it, it's gone. And that was FM. If I go down to medium wave, and let's just take a quick look over here.
Would you have heart failure if you ever used the band select button, Mike?
I'm old school. I do everything manual.
I know you do.
I do it the manual way.
Ash, where is your frequency of interest? I suspect it may be right down at VLF, in which case, both.
If it is VLF, then I would say use a pre-selector.
Yeah, mainly long wave for the moment, but I have a nearby broadcast station on medium wave, so which could impact reception on long wave.
Which device are you using? If it's the RSP-DX, that will specifically help you if you use high dynamic range mode for, you said long wave is your band of choice?
Yeah, I just purchased the Duo, so I'm thinking if I need to buy the filter with it.
You can get a low pass filter that will null everything from 540 and up, and it will give you it will bring in your 540 and down a lot better.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Or there's, like I said, a pre-selector. I think Cross Country Wireless has a new pre-selector. I have one on order, and it's completely band selectable and tunable. It's a passive device.
Right.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Ash. Okay.
Any other quick questions before we go?
Okay. Well, I think it just remains for me to thank everybody for your participation, and this is really good for us to get a sense of the questions that are on your minds, and that maybe we could do more to as we shape up our support and all the materials that we put together. It's been really useful to us. I hope it's been useful to you. Thank you for the nice feedback comments we're seeing. A big thank you to Mike and Steve for being with me on this session today. It's been good to see you all, and we'll be like I say, the website is sdrplay.com/webinars for more news of future webinars and workshops like this.
All right, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
So thanks everybody. Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
Cheers all then. Bye-bye.